Hi everyone, Stjepan here. I'm going to continue covering games from Hvar Open. In this video I'm going to show you my round 3 game in which I faced an incredibly strong young player. In round 1 he drew an international master, and in round 2 he beat a FIDE master. So definitely not 1700 as the rest of the tournament showed. And the fun fact is, if you've seen my previous video where I faced an international master rated 2360, this is actually his son. So this is a kid who has access to great advice and great training, and I spoke to his dad after our game. He's basically playing tournaments where his son is playing to accompany him. So a very strong player. He started pawn e4. I played the Caro-Kann, and here he surprised me. He played the accelerated Panov, which, as I told him after the game, is the only variation in the Caro-Kann where I don't feel comfortable, and I actually haven't looked at it for a while, which this game changed. I've been studying it for at least 4 hours since the game, so now I'm better prepared. Okay, so of course I know something, but I don't know it as well as the other variations. So pawn takes. Of course, it's possible to get into the normal Panov with e takes, d takes, and d4. But my opponent played c takes, and now c takes, e takes, knight f6. Taking with the queen straight away is possible, but it allows knight c3 with tempo. Knight c3, knight takes d5, knight f3, knight c6. This is all normal. And after bishop to b5, I knew that e6 is the main move, but I couldn't remember everything. So after e6, I figured he would castle, and I would play bishop e7, and he would play pawn to d4. And I wasn't really happy with this position. I didn't know the plans, and I didn't know what to do. I knew that the idea is sort of to play bishop f6 and to prevent this diagonal from becoming a problem, but it usually does become a problem after g6 and h4. So instead I went for something weird. I played knight takes c3, and after b takes c3, if you remember my round 1 game, which I showed 2 videos ago, I can actually show it to you. I had this position in the Panov, and after bishop to b4, a3, I took, and he took. And this is a fairly similar pawn structure if you compare the 2 pawn structures. There's this structural feature of 2 pawns on the C and D files and the isolated pawn on the A file. And this is a pawn structure which I enjoy playing against. That may or may not be smart, but I like it. And here, what I learned after the game, exists a continuation which I didn't know about, which starts with queen d5. And after queen e2, you go bishop g4. And this is a way for black to equalize. Bishop c4, bishop f3, bishop d5. Bishop e2, king e2, and this should be about equal. And this is actually something, had I known it during the game, I would have gone for, because it amplifies the structural weaknesses my opponent has. Instead I went for bishop d7, and after the game I told him that I wasn't prepared for this, and I said, is bishop d7 even good? He said, and he is 10 years old, he is the Croatian under 11 champion, as I said, a very strong player. He said bishop d7 can be played, but it's not good. And he knows it, even though it's not a common move. And I didn't know it, I just played it because it seemed safe. He knew it, and he knew that it wasn't the critical line. It should be about equal, though. The point is, you don't allow any tricks which can occur in the accelerated Panova along this diagonal in conjunction with knight e5 and queen a4 and so on. Bishop d7 is just a safe passive move. Okay, white castles, I go e6, I can also go g6. And now d4, bishop e7, and here he played bishop f4, which isn't a common move. The best way to play, which I knew, not that I knew the position, but I knew that it had to be the idea, is to transfer the bishop back to d3 and create a battery, provoke g6, and then start attacking. This is how you lose these types of positions with black. Okay, but bishop f4, which gives me time to castle. I can also play bishop f6, both are okay. He played rook e1, bishop f6 finally, and here he played bishop to d3, which is okay. Okay, and my next move is a mistake that actually, you could say, loses the game. It does lose material. It's not clear whether you lose the game or not, but definitely it's not easy to play. So I would like you to pause the video here, try to find the move for black, and don't make the same mistake I did. I'll just turn off my phone because I keep getting messages. Okay, so here you have to be very careful. There are two weaknesses in your position, which I was only aware of one. h7 is a weakness, b7 is a weakness. So white actually has a direct threat of queen b1 winning a pawn. So the only way to sort of justify those two weaknesses is to play knight e7. And this is a hard move to make. The idea is you want to meet queen b1 with h6. And if queen takes b7, you have bishop c6, and this should give you enough compensation for the pawn. You're going to take on f3, and then you're going to start harassing white with knight d5 and rook c8 and so on. In the game, I played rook c8, which is close to a losing position. My opponent didn't play queen b1. Had he played queen b1, I mean, I just lose material. So again, if h6, now queen b7, I don't have bishop c6. This is just a clean pawn up for white. If I go knight e7 now, he can go queen e4. Threatening mate, so knight g6, something like bishop d2. Everything is defended. White's pieces are perfect. I have absolutely nothing in this position. Knight e5 is coming. If I had this position over the board, I would assume that I'm basically lost because I cannot move anything. And if I don't have time for bishop c6, then I'm definitely lost. So rook c8 is a mistake that could have cost me the game. Luckily for me, my opponent didn't use it. He played rook c1. Now, of course, there is no queen b1 anymore. So I played g6. And all the while, I just thought my position is great. I have a clear plan. I want to go knight a5, knight c4, blockade, control e5, put pressure on c3 eventually, and basically play as if I'd played out a successful minority attack and weakened the c-pawn. Obviously, the idea behind knight a5, knight c4 is to get my bishop to c6. Okay, he played bishop h6, which I don't think is a good move because my rook wants to be on e8 anyway. And here he played bishop b1, which more than equalizes for black. It actually gives me a slight edge. Bishop b1 is a mistake that doesn't do anything. If he wants to play it tricky, which is something I'd actually calculated during the game, I lost a ton of time at some point before g6 calculating this. So in this position, I was calculating g6, bishop h6, rook e8, and h4. And my idea was, if he offers the pawn, I'm going to take it. I couldn't see everything, so I was thinking, and you can try to follow this. So g6, bishop h6, rook e8, h4, bishop takes, knight takes, queen d2, threatening bishop g5. So I have to play f6. And then he goes rook e4. And I wasn't sure what to do. I knew I had to go back to queen h5 and then bishop e2. And it wasn't clear to me. Let's put it on the board. So g6, bishop h6, rook e8, h4. I takes, queen d2, the critical move, threatening bishop g5. So f6, preventing bishop g5. Rook e4, queen h5, and now bishop e2. And in this position, during my analysis, I just couldn't see what to do. I wasn't sure whether I had a position that's playable. Now it's obvious to see that I have queen a5, but when you're calculating that much ahead, that's not easy to see. Even here, something like queen f4 seems scary, but I have queen back to f5. So it's okay. But yeah, he didn't go for h4. This was definitely the critical line. He played bishop b1, which, as I said, is a mistake. Now I have time for knight a5, knight e5, knight c4. He played queen f3, which isn't a good move. Seems scary, but it doesn't work. If I take on e5, d5, I don't have time for bishop c6 because he takes, queen takes f6. But I had this move bishop g5, and now I just have a better endgame. The point is, after bishop g5, queen g5, he cannot take on b7 because bishop to c6 wins the queen. Obviously I'm threatening mate and the queen, so he needs to do something else. He played bishop e4, I played bishop c6, and yeah, black is better now. Bishop takes, rook takes. He played rook b1, threatening the b7 pawn. I don't have time for rook c7 or rook b8. If I play rook b8, he takes on c6. So I just played queen e7. That's the simplest, defends everything. G3, rook ec8, and rook b3. Rook b3 is, you could call it the losing move for white. After this, black's advantage is tremendous, actually, because the rook is sort of trapped on the side. I just played b6, and this means that this rook is offside, stupid, defending the c3 pawn, and actually cannot move. And all I have to do is somehow put pressure on one of these three pawns again, and I should be able to win some material, in theory. Rook d1, rook c7. This is just a safe move. I don't want his queen attacking my rook, and I don't want anything coming to the 7th rank. There were better moves, but this is okay. He played queen d3, I played queen c5, attacking the e5 pawn. f4 is impossible. Queen e4. Now I simply went back because I figured I need my rook on c5, not my queen. My queen needs to defend my dark squares. I don't want to go venturing off with my queen, so queen back to e7. He played queen d3, offered the draw, but I didn't want to repeat. I wanted my rook on c5. Again, f4 would be very scary and not a good move. And also I can continue queen to c7 and b5, a5, b4, and so on. He played queen d7, and here I made a mistake. My position is very good. I have a big advantage, and I actually need to include my king. So the correct way to play this position was king f8, and of course, if he takes, then my king is closer and he would have to defend the pawn. And also the pawn on c3 is hanging, the pawn on e5 is hanging. And if he plays rook to d3, I cannot take because my rook is hanging, but I can play rook 8 to c7. And now he basically has to take the queen or play queen d6. There are no other options. If he plays queen d6, I win a pawn by force, so queen e7. King e7 and f4 defending the pawn, but now rook a5. And with two rooks on the board and with my king closer, this is close to winning. Instead, I took on d7, which isn't as good, because after rook takes d7, I played rook a5. Playing rook to c7 and rook c7, rook c7. With one rook on the board, this is not as easy to win. It may not be winnable at all. So I didn't want to trade a pair of rooks, so rook a5. a3. Another interesting option was c4. I was looking at c4 in this position, and I thought that after c4 I would take on e5, and after rook f3 I would just play rook f5, and if he takes, or maybe takes with the g pawn, takes here, I thought this should be equal, but I would play it for a win. In any case, I thought c4 was an interesting move. He didn't play it. He played a3, which is a more human move. And now I played rook c4, preventing c4. I don't want to allow that. Rook d4, rook c7. Now, rook c4 was an interesting idea Of course, I'm not going to win a pawn because I don't have time for rook a4. He has rook d4. However, I'm able to take control over the 7th rank. So rook c4 is actually aimed to regain control over the 7th rank without trading a pair of rooks. So rook d4, rook c7. f4, defending the pawn, king f8. Now I have time to get my king into play. King e3, rook c5. Now we do a bit of maneuvering. I'm trying to target his weaknesses, but I'm not that successful. h5 gains space, king e3, rook c8. Now I was thinking of f6, and if I can play f6, and if I can then get my rook to d5, basically, long story short, I want a pawn on d5. If I can get a pawn on d5, that means that I basically have a passed pawn on the queen side, regardless of what happens, which means that trading a pair of rooks could be safe because I should have a better endgame. So here he played h4, I played rook ac5, he played king d3, and I played f6. So it's clear that he has to take. If he doesn't take, I'm going to win a pawn. Either after king e4 taking on c3 or just winning the pawn on e4. So he has to take, and after king takes, he has to play rook d7. If he doesn't play rook d7, he has no counterplay. And I calculated this for a long time. I played rook d5 check. This has to be taken, pawn takes. And now I've achieved a positional advantage which prevents, well, the pawn on d5 prevents his king from entering, not only because the pawn controls the squares, but because I have rook c4. Secondly, and more importantly, I have a way in for my king, so I can target his kingside weaknesses. Thirdly, any pawn endgame is absolutely winning for me at this point, so rook b5 is simply not possible. Or, if rook b5 is played, I can play rook c5. He played rook b5 here, and I started with king e6. It was also possible to play rook c5 straight away. The point is that this endgame is dead lost for white. Why? Because I'm just going to pick up these pawns, and he's going to have to stay guarding these because I make a queen. For example, here, here. And if here, I can just make a queen. Whenever he tries to regain the pawn, I can just enter the position and obviously have a winning endgame. But I started king e6. He played a4. It's hard to find the move, but a4 is definitely the losing move. Why? Again, because of that same endgame. I played rook c4. The only way for him to save himself is either to play rook b4 or to advance the pawn to a5. If rook b4, I take, and have a winning endgame. Again, the same story. Rook b4 takes, and I just enter. Same thing. I'm much quicker. I take this pawn, move away, and queen. And yeah, after rook c4, he played a5, and now I can just go rook to c5. And again, this pawn endgame it's the same as before. It's just that the pawn is on a5. Dead lost for white. So after rook c5, he played rook b1, and I win a pawn, and this should now be a technically winning game. I actually did manage to give him an opportunity to draw. I didn't play it precisely. I misplayed it at one point, and a stronger player would have drawn this. He played rook e1 check, king f6, rook e8, rook a1, rook f8, king e7, rook g8, rook f7, rook a8. Okay, a5. This was all correct. Here he played king d4, and I actually made the drawing blunder. I played rook d1 check. Here was my idea. I wanted to play rook d1. After he moves to e5, I wanted to play rook e1, and after he takes the pawn, I'm going to play rook e3, win the c3 pawn. If I win the c3 pawn, I win the game, because even if I lose these two, his king is completely cut off, and my king is going to pick up all the kingside pawns. Here's why it doesn't work. I played rook d1, he played king e5, I played rook e1, he played king d5, I played rook e3, he played rook a7 check, I played king f6, and in this position he lost the game and went into my plans completely. He played rook a6, and after rook a6, rook c3, it's game over. He could have saved the game with c4, which is incredible. I didn't see that this holds. I actually saw this position before playing rook e1 check, and I saw c4, but I'd misjudged it. The point is, after c4, rook g3, rook a6, king f5, rook b6, rook d3 check, for example, king c6. I could go rook d4, I could take on f4, let's say rook d4, rook b5 check, king f4, c5. This is enough to hold. This pawn is too strong. Eventually, I'm going to have to give up my rook for the c5 pawn, and my 2 pawns on the king side are not going to be enough. Here's a sample variation. For example, this was just my analysis without the engine, and when I turn the engine on, it's actually, all the moves are basically okay. Okay, so basically this is what happens, and this you cannot win. This is a draw. This is just a draw, because his king holds my h pawn. So, if rook d1 loses or draws, then the correct way to play was king e6. And I was looking at this, but I thought rook e1 is easily winning, rook d1 is easily winning, so why calculate? The point is here, after rook e8 check, king d6, rook d8 check, I go king c7. And there are 2 sensible options for white. One of them is, it's easy to see white loses. If rook d5, I just go rook d1 check, take, and go a4, and this is game over. For example, king c4, b5 check, king b4, king d6, and I just go and pick up all the pawns. There's no way for him to hold. The only chance is c4, but now bc4, king a4, and king d5, and obviously winning. The other option, if you don't want to take the pawn, is to go rook g8, but this is too slow. Now I go rook d1. He can go either king e5 or king e3, it doesn't really matter. Let's say king e3, and now a4, and that's it. He cannot take the pawn on g6 because I queen. So it was much simpler to go king e6, simply defending my pawn, because I can run away from checks. But as I said, I went rook d1. And in this position, he didn't go c4, which would have held the position. He went rook a6, and now it's easily winning. Rook c3. When I win the c pawn, it's over, because his king is too far away. My 2 pawns on the queen side don't matter at all. So rook b6, king f5, king d4, rook g3, rook b5, king f4. And we get this position, which, of course, is just game over. Here's how the game ended. My technique might not have been perfect, but I managed to cut his king off, put it in the corner, safeguard my king from checks, and then eventually put him into Zugzwang in this position where I'm threatening mate, and if he plays rook to f7, I go rook e1 check. He has to play rook f1, I take and play king h2 queening. So he has to play king f1, and I just drew his king away. Now it's the same story. I'm threatening not mate, but to get his king out of the corner, which is the same thing because my king advances. And yeah, that's it. I also could have just played king h2, is the same thing. After rook a4, he resigned. So it wasn't an easy game by any means. It was a very tough game. Firstly, I had a close to losing position, losing one of my pawns after I played rook c8, which is my biggest mistake of the game. My second biggest mistake of the game was rook d1 check, which is, I would say, more serious because it's more advanced. Had I been thinking about my weakness on b7, I never would have played rook c8. But this, I'm not sure I could have prevented with my current knowledge. Okay, thank you for watching. I hope you got something from the game. Let me know what you think and stay tuned for more chess. Bye bye.